High Commander Vex Thul stood on the bridge of his flagship Eternal Dominion, watching the tactical display with growing confusion. The human colony world of New Olympia hung before them like a blue-green jewel, its cities glittering in the morning sun, completely defenseless against his armada of 300 warships. "Status report," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 47 star systems for the Zarkethi Empire. "All orbital defenses eliminated," High Commander reported his tactical officer. "Their pathetic fleet destroyed within the first hour. The planet is completely at our mercy, just as predicted." Vex Thul nodded with satisfaction. The humans had proven surprisingly resilient over the past 5 years of war, but their technology was still centuries behind the Empire's. This world would fall like all the others, its population enslaved, its resources harvested for the glory of Zarketh. "Open a channel to the planetary surface," he ordered. "Let's give them the standard ultimatum." The view screen flickered to life, revealing the face of Governor Maria Santos, the human administrator of New Olympia. She was a middle-aged woman with steel-gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much war. Behind her, Vex Thul could see the emergency command center where human officials worked frantically at their primitive computer terminals. "Governor Santos," Vex Thul began, his tone carrying the weight of inevitable conquest. "I am High Commander Vex Thul of the Zarkethi Empire. Your defenses have been eliminated, your fleet destroyed. You have exactly 1 hour to surrender unconditionally, or we will begin orbital bombardment of your major population centers." Governor Santos looked directly into the camera, her expression unreadable. "And if we surrender? Your people will be relocated to designated work zones. Your world's resources will be harvested for the Empire. Those who comply will be treated adequately. Slavery, in other words." Vex Thul's mandibles clicked with irritation. Productive integration into the Empire's economic structure. "You should be grateful. Most species don't receive such generous terms." Santos was quiet for a long moment, and Vex Thul could see her listening to something off camera. Her advisors were probably explaining the hopelessness of their situation, preparing her for the inevitable capitulation. "High Commander," she said finally, "I need to ask you something. In all your conquests, have you ever encountered a species that chose death over enslavement?" The question caught Vex Thul off guard. That would be illogical. Survival is the primary drive of all intelligent life. "That's what I thought you'd say." Santos turned to someone off camera and nodded. "Initiate Protocol Omega." "What is Protocol Omega?" Vex Thul demanded, but Santos had already cut the transmission. Within minutes, his sensors began detecting massive energy readings from across the planet's surface. Not weapons, the humans had no weapons left that could threaten his armada. These were different signatures, coming from what appeared to be industrial facilities. "Sir," his science officer called out, his voice tight with confusion, "I'm reading massive fusion reactions from 17 locations across the planet. They appear to be deliberately destabilizing their power generation facilities." Vex Thul stared at the display in disbelief as the energy readings spiked beyond safe parameters. "They're causing reactor meltdowns? That makes no sense. They'll irradiate their own world." "Not just radiation, sir," the science officer continued, his tone growing more urgent. "Based on these readings, they're creating cascading fusion reactions. The atmospheric composition shows increasing levels of paused, checking his instruments again. Sir, they're turning their entire atmosphere into a fusion medium." The implications hit Vex Thul like a physical blow. They're burning their own planet. On the view screen, New Olympia had begun to glow. Not the gentle blue-green of a living world, but the harsh white-orange of stellar fire. The atmosphere itself was igniting in a controlled fusion reaction that would consume everything organic on the planet's surface within hours. "Impossible," breathed his tactical officer. No species would destroy their own world rather than accept conquest. Vex Thul's communicator chimed an incoming transmission from the planet's surface. Governor Santos appeared on screen again, but now she was wearing an environmental suit, and behind her the command center was bathed in ominous orange light. "Hi, Commander," she said, her voice calm despite the apocalypse raging around her. "I wanted you to witness this personally. To understand what you're dealing with. You're insane." Vex Thul snarled. "You're killing billions of your own people." "No," Santos replied quietly. "We're choosing how we die. Every person on this planet volunteered for Protocol Omega. We'd rather burn our world to ash than see our children raised as slaves." The planet's glow was intensifying now, and Vex Thul's sensors showed that the fusion reaction was becoming self-sustaining. Within hours, New Olympia would be nothing but a molten ball of slag, completely uninhabitable and worthless. "This changes nothing," Vex Thul said, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "We will simply move on to your other colonies." Santos smiled, actually smiled as her world burned around her. "Will you? Because I should mention, High Commander, that every human colony received the same ultimatum protocols 3 years ago. Every world, every station, every ship has Protocol Omega installed and ready." She gestured to something off-screen, and the display showed a star map with dozens of human worlds highlighted. "We've been preparing for this moment since the war began. You can conquer our worlds, but you can't possess them. We'll burn every last one to deny them to you." "You're bluffing," Vex Thul said, but he was already thinking about the implications. The Empire's expansion was built on conquest and resource extraction. What was the point of conquering worlds that would be destroyed the moment they were threatened? 3 colonies in the Tau Ceti system just received your advanced scouts, Santos continued conversationally, as if she weren't standing in the middle of a planetary crematorium. "They've already begun their own Protocol Omega sequences. By the time your forces arrive, there won't be anything left but slag and radiation." Vex Thul turned to his tactical officer. "Confirm those readings from Tau Ceti." The officer's face went pale as he studied his instruments. "Sir, all 3 worlds in the Tau Ceti system are showing massive fusion reactions. They're burning themselves." Governor Santos was still talking, her image flickering now as the communication satellites began to fail in the intense heat. "You wanted to know if any species would choose death over enslavement, High Commander. Now you know. Humanity doesn't just choose death, we choose how we die, and we choose to take our worlds with us, rather than let you have them." The transmission cut out as the last communication array on New Olympia melted in the stellar heat of the planet's death throes. Vex Thul stood in stunned silence, watching a world die by its own choice. In 300 years of conquest, he had never encountered anything like this. Species fought, species surrendered, species bargained for better terms. They didn't simply choose mutual annihilation rather than accept defeat. "High Commander," his communications officer called out hesitantly, "we're receiving similar reports from all advanced fleets. Every human world we've approached has begun the same burning process. The humans are. They're destroying their entire civilization rather than let us conquer it." For the first time in his military career, High Commander Vex Thul felt something he had never experienced before: the cold touch of defeat. Not tactical defeat. His fleet remained unharmed. His weapons still worked. His soldiers were still ready to fight. But strategic defeat, the understanding that victory was impossible, because the enemy had changed the rules of the game entirely. You couldn't conquer people who would rather burn their worlds than be conquered. You couldn't enslave a species that chose extinction over servitude. And you couldn't build an empire on the ashes of worlds that refused to be taken. As New Olympia completed its transformation from living world to funeral pyre, Vexthul finally understood what made humanity different from every other species the Empire had encountered. They weren't just willing to die for their freedom. They were willing to ensure that their deaths meant something, even if it meant taking their entire civilization with them into the flames.